So this next session, we're going to talk to you about all things compliance. We had the privilege of introducing you to Michelle in the director's session. Michelle's just celebrated her 1-year anniversary with the ACNC, so happy anniversary, Michelle. I was hoping you might expand on that a little bit more and tell us, what has the last year held for the ACNC in the compliance space?
Absolutely. So I know compliance and regulation because that's been the space I've been working in for around 25 years, but the charity sector has been new to me. So getting my head across a new, very interesting and very important sector has been fantastic. In terms of our compliance work, our secrecy provisions do stop me giving away too much, but I can talk in terms of some of the numbers which do tell a story. So 94 investigations completed over the last year, which is up 60 to 70% on previous years. 22 revocations, so that is up nearly, over 200% on previous years. Audits, 29, up 262%. And evaluations, over 450 evaluations compared to 100 from the previous year. So big jumps from previous years, as you'd see, which has meant a lot greater touch on the sector from a compliance perspective. And there's been a lot of work behind the scenes to improve our efficiency and productivity and timeliness to investigations, a lot of work being more strategic in our approach to investigations to make sure we're driving a change in behaviour and driving outcomes that support the integrity of the sector. There's also been a lot of work, more so than ever, in working with other government agencies, including state and federal regulators and law enforcement, and building relationships with them. We've got a lot of overlapping spaces, so lots of opportunities to work together.
That's interesting. I guess those numbers can sound a little scary for some of you, that our revocations have gone up, our investigations have gone up. But I think it's really important. Most of us here, I think, believe in the integrity of the sector, and we know that one bad egg can really hurt the reputation of the sector. So in the scheme of things, we regulate nearly 64,000 charities. What was it, 22 revocations?
Yeah.
It shows that it is a small proportion that warrant that real hard sort of outcome there. But great to see that the team have been really busy at shifting behaviours, and because at the end of the day, that's what we really want. So a huge amount of work there for a small team. What would you say some of the biggest achievements of the last year have been?
Yeah, so 12 compliance officers, so it is a small team. I'd say achievements are completing a series of reviews and getting those guidances and summaries up on our website across cyber, artificial intelligence, safeguarding and complex structures. Also, as you touched on, shifting behaviour, I'd say, is the biggest success, and that's been through a range of enforcement tools. Revocation is one tool, but while that is also up more than ever, we're working with charities with education and guidance to bring them into compliance. We're also looking at more tools under our legislation. We've got warnings and enforceable undertakings, compliance agreements, and working more closely with responsible people to effect change in the sector.
Very busy. So I was having a look over the concern data because these sorts of things interest me, and I did find it really interesting to see what were the most common things that members of the public, other regulators complain about, really. What type of behaviour is not okay by public standards? I guess it's not a surprise, given it's a federal election year, that disqualifying purpose actually came into the top 4. So that was interesting to see. I know that it didn't push our top concern off the radar, though, and that's private benefit. So I think it's something like nearly 25% of all concerns that we receive regarding charities is about private benefit. The other two are mismanagement and criminal or improper purpose. So interesting there. I was hoping you might give me a bit more of your context there, in particular the advocacy stuff and what you might have seen.
Of course. So yeah, a big jump in the concerns from around 2,300 concerns last year up to nearly 4,000 concerns. So it's really interesting to see and try and understand why that is happening. Of course, given the election, we did have that extra focus on political advocacy. We do recognise that advocacy and campaigning is a legitimate and effective way for charities to further their purposes. However, it's really important that you don't cross the line in that space, and public perception is really important there. So think about what the public might perceive with any advocacy work that you do. We've got great guidance on our website, but the key messages are that it's okay to have a purpose of advancing public debate if that furthers or aids your charitable purpose, and it's okay to promote or oppose a change to law, policy or practice that again aligns with your charitable purpose. But it's not okay to promote or oppose a political party, engage in or promote activities that are unlawful, or engage in or promote activities that are contrary to public policy. In terms of what we saw this year with the federal election, it was really different from previous elections. In 2022, we had around 450 complaints, which was very different. We had only 50 or less than 50 complaints this year across half the number of charities, and that very much focused around opposing or promoting particular political parties. So that suggests to me that the sector has got a really good understanding of how they do need to conduct themselves in the advocacy space, and that our guidance is actually been really helpful.
And that people are reading it,
yes,
which is always helpful.
Yes.
I know it comes up every year, really, that it's both in the things that people complain about and also the behaviour that warrants looking into by the compliance team, that the failure to comply with the governance standards just comes up time and time again. So what help is out there for charities and responsible people who are a bit worried about that and might think that they might not be getting it right?
The ACNC website is fantastic. We have so much material there that is there to support charities to get their governance right. Topic guides, fact sheets, webinars, podcasts, educational videos, online learning. Of course, we've got the phone line to our advice centre, who are fantastic, and soon we'll be launching self-evaluation tools. So that's an interactive questionnaire that can support charities to make sure they're complying with their obligations. And it could be something that you pick one of those evaluation tools for a board meeting and work through it together to see if you're on track.
That's great. I know we've all got different ways of taking in information, so it sounds like there's a range of tools out there, and you know, if you're really in doubt, just call the help number. I won't go into it in too much detail because I know Sue mentioned in her opening address that we have released guidance on the complex structures, so I don't want to reiterate that. But what I was hoping you might talk to us about is I know that we did some reviews into complex structures and that some of that work was really pivotal in helping us with that guidance. We haven't yet published what we found with those complex structures, and it will be coming, but can you give us a bit of a sneak peek as to what you found there?
Certainly, it's certainly the hot topic of the year. We've completed our reviews, as you said, which gave us some really interesting insights. We engaged with a number of charities with group structures to help us understand the benefits and risks of such a structure and how they might address those risks and other governance considerations. These reviews have shown us some examples of best practice and lots of good reasons why a group structure might actually be the most appropriate structure. We did see a high level of compliance as well, and we've been able to use this to inform the guidance, which, as you said, is published, and we'll be working on a summary of our findings, which will be on our website in the coming months.
Great. It might be worth, because not everyone in the room might not be familiar with our compliance reviews and how we actually select charities to participate in that. So my understanding is that is an opt-in, it's voluntary.
Yes, so reviews, as I said, it's about us. It's an opportunity for us to learn more about a particular topic which is of interest to the sector. So we do approach a cohort of charities, and yes, we it's up to you if you participate, but we certainly encourage you, and it's not about a compliance, it's very much an interactive interview to fill the gaps in our knowledge.
Yeah, so no surprises that we've seen some great demonstrations of best practice when people want to showcase that, but really helpful for us to gain a better understanding of when complex structures might be used and how to do them well. So what is the ACNC's focus for the year ahead?
We're getting back to basics, and our regulatory focus for this financial year is record keeping. So there's huge benefit in helping charities get this right, as it's so foundational for all charities. Record keeping is the core to good governance. Just quote our Assistant Minister, he said, the more transparent you are, the more trust you have. So that really is the basis of that. It applies to all charities, regardless of your size or reporting exemptions, including basic religious charities. Transparency achieved through your record keeping enables accountability, helps charities build trusted relationships with members and donors and beneficiaries, and it's also an important contributor to charities' credibility in the community. As Sue touched on earlier as well, our compliance work has shown us that where charities lack appropriate record keeping, there is often downfalls in other governance areas. And on the converse, where they do have appropriate and effective record keeping, it's generally very much reflective of good governance, good decision making, and financial management and risk management. When we receive a concern or a complaint to the ACNC, record keeping is the first thing we look at. So effective records support us to reach outcomes quickly.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I note that we're using the term regulatory focus and as opposed to a compliance focus. And I guess that reflects that we have like any good regulator, we have a regulatory pyramid that shows how we allocate our resources. And the biggest part of our pyramid is guidance and education. And so, this is about helping charities get the basics right, not about coming down hard on charities. But recognising just how important good records are, and it's really interesting to hear why, and that we're taking, compliance work or regulatory work can take that real guidance and education focus to help charities get it right to start with too. So I look forward to reading more about that. I know a topic that comes up, and it has come up today, and it tends to come up in these forums quite a lot, is cyber security. So can you give us, I know we've heard a number of perspectives on cyber security, but have you got any views from the ACNC compliance space?
So cyber, exactly as you said, it keeps coming up. It's up at every forum. So I appreciate that it is an emerging hot topic for the sector, and to quote our Commissioner, nearly all charities, small and large, hold sensitive personal data such as the names of donors, members, volunteers, staff and the people who use their services, and that information can be taken and misused if there's an attack on your services. So it is really important. We did a series of reviews, both last financial year and further again this financial year, which did look at cyber security, and we aimed to identify key areas where charities could strengthen their governance to ensure they were minimising this risk and manage a cyber event if that occurred. We found that charities were able to achieve satisfactory governance in this space if they had robust information and data management policies and procedures. They had governance that enabled and supported board members to drive a strong cyber security culture. They drew on the latest cyber security resources, of many of which are freely available, and Wilsbrook, the Australian Cyber Security Centre, they've got a lot of information. And also thinking carefully about understanding the risks of your unique charity's operating environment.
Yeah, I loved hearing in the previous panel from our states and territories, cybersecurity is, it's an ever-changing landscape. I know it's something I grapple with on a personal level. You know, we all still participate in society, but tying that back to our theme of getting the basics right, that, you know, record keeping, the comment that I think came from WA about, you know, encouraging charities, if you don't need to collect credit card details on an ongoing basis and save them, don't do that. I think it's interesting sort of pairing that new, scary in a way, topic with something that's really fundamental, like just getting the basics right, making sure your record keeping's in order. I do want to make sure that I don't take the whole floor with asking lots and lots of questions, so we are going to leave time for questions from the floor. But I'm going to ask my last question, and it's going to be quite on a serious topic, and it flows nicely because I know one of the previous panels did start to talk about this a little bit about terrorism and terrorism financing. So that is an enduring priority risk for the ACNC. But I know that there's a bit of work happening in this space at the moment. So are you able to update us on what's happening there?
Of course. So yeah, an unfortunate fact is that charities are vulnerable to the risk of having their funds misused for terrorism financing. And this risk is more so if charities are operating in the international space, even if they are working in line with their charitable purpose. And I think the panel earlier today, particularly Catherine Wilson from Austrac, talked to that really well and highlighted some key risk areas for you to consider. But we do really emphasise it's important that charities take reasonable precautions and exercise due diligence to ensure that their funds aren't inadvertently going to finance terrorism. We do have guidance available on our website, and we are doing a series of reviews this year which will support us to improve that guidance. Catherine also touched on that there's a risk assessment underway, so we are a part of that and in supporting those outcomes to make sure it's a robust sector that is doing all that it can to prevent funds being misused in that space.
I look forward to, for those of you who aren't overly familiar with the compliance reviews, when they're complete, a summary of the reviews and the findings is published on the website for further learnings. They're learnings for the ACNC, but also learnings for the sector. So I really look forward to seeing what you get out of those reviews. That's the last of my questions for you, Michelle. I think we've got some questions from the audience.
We do. Question 1. Michelle, what does a compliance evaluation consist of?
That is basically a questionnaire we provide to charities, which covers all governance areas and enables the charity to work through. So it's very much on the proactive bottom of our compliance triangle space, where you can assess your charity's compliance across a range of governance areas and address areas which need more work.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm wondering if you can help us with help the audience understand how we work with other regulators. So do we work with government funders during an investigation? Do we meet regularly with state and territorial regulators? What do we do in that space?
Lots happening in that space. So we do meet regularly with our state and territory counterparts. We also have regular meetings with our international counterparts, and then with the state and federal regulators, which might include the AFP, ASIC, Fair Work Ombudsman, ACIC, NDIA. There's the list can just keep going. So many charities are regulated by another entity just by the nature of the variety of the sector. So that's where there's opportunity for us to work together to achieve the outcomes that fit both of our purposes.
Thanks, Michelle. In terms of our focus on robust record keeping, will it be prescriptive, or will the ACNC take a principles-based approach to its review?
We know and recognise that it is not a one-size-fits-all. It is such variety in the sector. So it's important charities take into consideration the size and complexity and nature of the work for their space. Our legislation is principle-based, our guidance is principle-based, so absolutely it's going to be reflective of individual charity circumstances.
Right. Got a question from a recent report from the Productivity Commission, which suggested that we rely on education rather than enforcement. What is your view on that, and do you think there's any plans to use compliance powers to a greater degree?
There's always an opportunity to use, there's often a need for us to use compliance powers to achieve compliance, but as we talk about the regulatory pyramid, this is the pointy bit of the triangle, and as I talked, 22 revocations across a sector of 63,000. It's not something we do very often, but it is something that I think is important for regulators to have, that there is a tool to use when we see particular entities deliberately contravening the law, or the nature of the harm is so significant.
It's I'll just chime in there too. It's interesting. We're a public trust and confidence regulator, and that requires a really balanced approach. And I'm going to assume if you're in the room, you're here, or you're online, joining us online, you're actually engaged with your obligations. You want to do the right thing, and so in that case, the education approach, if for any reason you start to verge into a non-compliant space, education's going to work. And sometimes it's really difficult to conceive just what non-compliance might look like when you're overly compliant. But we do have to get that balance right. If someone's really doing the wrong thing, we have to take appropriate and measured action there. And so sometimes guidance and education might not be appropriate if the behaviour is so egregious. Or, we've got a range of compliance powers. So, for example, removing a responsible person. There might be one bad egg and the rest of the charity is doing great work. And actually we might be able to help the charity get back on track by using that power. So we do have a range of powers. There are limitations on when we can use them. But to make sure that we're using it, I think the end focus is always the same. It's actually to public trust and confidence and do what we can to get the charity back on track. And it might require guidance and education in one, and that might be effective in one space, but it might actually require, the use of an enforcement power. In the most extreme case, revocation, if that's what's required to restore public trust and confidence in both the sector and us as a regulator, that we actually do something. As we mentioned earlier, we've had an increase in concerns. We have to do something with that. If the public are worried about something, they trust us to do something with that. Is that the end of the questions? Yes. Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks so much, Natasha and Michelle.